Okay, we're on our third podcast here for naming, and hopefully you're getting the hang of naming the simple compounds that have just two elements in them. And now we're going to approach what's called a polyatomic anion. So polyatomic anion. So hopefully you're thinking about an anion that it is the negative half. And what does polyatomic mean? So polyatomic means that it contains more than one atom bound together. So here's an example of a polyatomic anion. Usually you have some central atom X that's a nonmetal bonded with some sort of negative charge, often oxygen. And they're called oxyanions. We're not going to get super excited about that name. We're basically just going to call them polyatomic anions. And so you can see the example that I have down here. I have PO4, you should recognize this as phosphorus and oxygen. I have a phosphorus with 4 oxygen, has a -3 charge. If you look on your cation sheet, this is called phosphate. So you notice that I no longer have that IDE ending. That tells you that there must be oxygen involved. So how do we use this? So I'm not going to do anything different. I've been doing it all along. I've been writing down the symbol and its charge. Now you're going to look at the 8 column. Find the 8 column on your gold sheet. It's the one on the far right. And you are going to see that it's NO3 with a -1 charge. So what this means is that this entire nitrate ion exists with 1 nitrogen and 3 oxygen, and it is a unit. You cannot separate that out. So you got to keep it as a unit. So as I look at this, I can see that +2 and -1, they still do not equal 0. So I'm still going to do my crisscross method, except that crisscross method goes all the way on the outside. And I'm crisscrossing that. Now I hope you're thinking to yourself, that really doesn't look right, NO3 with a 2 on it. So we need to use some parentheses. Now I just have 1 calcium, so there's no need for parentheses there. But I have this unit that we are calling it, NO3, which is nitrate, and I need 2 of that whole thing. So when I have 2 things here with a -1 charge, this with a +2 charge, then I am neutral. So let's try the next one. So same thing, I'm going to look up aluminum phosphate. So I look up aluminum and I recognize that it's Al +3. I look up phosphate, PO4 -3. Again, this is representing a polyatomic ion. It's a unit. And if I look, I have +3 and -3. Well, that equals 0, so I don't need to do any crisscrossing. I just simply write down the formula, aluminum phosphate. If I do the next one, you can see sodium. I have Na +1. Look up sulfate, SO4 -2. Again, SO4 is a unit. +1 and -2 do not equal 0, so I'm going to drop this 2 down. I'm going to put this 1 on the outside. So the answer for that is I need 2 sodium, and I only need 1 sulfate, so I don't need any parentheses there because it's understood that there's 1 of that unit. And then going in the opposite direction is actually a lot easier. You're still going to separate into its cation and anions, but you can see that sodium is not a transition metal, so I just write down the first name, sodium, look up SO3, and that is sulfite. Magnesium, again, is not a transition metal, so it's just going to be magnesium. Cyanide. Cyanate, sorry. 2 elements together, so it has an 8. Okay, now, we're not asking you to memorize all of these things, but if some of you do end up coming to AP Chem next year, which I hope you do, you're going to see that it's really easy if I start with my 8s to move across to what's an ite, what's a hypoite, and what's a per-8. So the most common form is from the 8s. So if you take a look and I go from my 8s to my ites, do you see how it's 1 less oxygen? The charge stayed the same, the elements are the same, just 1 less oxygen. And then from my common form, it's 2 less oxygen or 1 from the ites. So you can see from the 8s to the ites and to the hypoites. And then if I go in the other direction, always starting from the 8s, I'm adding 1 additional oxygen. So I can see bromate to perbromate, bromite to hypobromite. So if I do tellurate, which I don't think is on your gold sheet, if it's tellurate and I want per tellurate, then I would just have TeO5 with that -2 charge. And then if I go to tellurite with the ITE ending, is TeO3 with a -2 charge. And then if I go to hypotellurite, it will be TeO2 with a -2 charge. Now this is just helpful if you need to memorize things. We will do one more little thing with this in class, but if I'm totally confusing you, please don't worry about it, and we will clear it up in class. So again, you have these practice problems that are assigned to you in addition to homework number 3, and I think that you guys are doing an excellent job on this, and you'll continue to work on this naming system, which is really important to take the next step in chemistry. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for listening. You have a wonderful day.